14th, 2020 afternoon meeting of the Town of Southampton Planning Board. This is the board's first meeting via video conferencing in accordance with the Governor's Order 202.1. So we will be proceeding a little differently from our typical meetings. Until further notice, all of the board's meetings will be held remotely. So we ask the public to continually check the town's website for updates and new information. There are also options on the website for public comment and to pre-register to speak on applications, so please consider that for all future meetings. If you wish to view today's live meeting only, please do not join the Zoom meeting. Please go to the town's meeting portal, choose the planning board from the meeting group drop-down menu on the left, and click on the live link at the top of the page. If you wish to be heard and are an applicant or an applicant's representative, but did not pre-register, please go to the town's meeting portal, choose the planning board from the meeting group drop-down menu on the left, and click on the agenda button for May 14th, which will give you the information required to join the Zoom meeting. As a reminder, all applicants or their agents may be heard at our afternoon regular meeting. Because this is not a public hearing, the public may not be heard at this time. That said, if you would like to submit written comments for the record, please go to the town's meeting portal, choose the planning board from the meeting group drop-down menu on the left, and click on the yellow public comments button. Fill out the form, and your comments will be made part of the record. With that, I ask you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Phil, Mr. Secretary, can you do a roll call, please?
Absolutely. Chair LaFaro.
Present.
Vice Chair Finnerty.
Present.
Secretary is here. Board Member Burke. You're muted, I think, Gloria.
You're muted.
You're muted. Board Member Long.
Present.
Board Member Zuccarelli is absent, and Board Member Blaney not on yet. He's absent. So we have a quorum.
Great. Do we have any minutes?
We do. We have minutes from January 9th, January 23rd, February 13th, and February 27th.
Okay, may I have a motion to accept the minutes?
Motion.
Motion by
Second.
Gloria, second by
Second.
Dennis. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention. So we figured out during practice session to raise a finger if you're voting, seconding, or so that I can see you, and then we'll move forward. So our first application, wait, I have to go back here. There are lots of items on the regular meeting agenda today.
Charles, could you give me the ability to share the screen?
Yeah, I still have more to say.
Oh, I'm sorry, but
just
yeah.
We have applicants and/or their representatives standing by via Zoom, which is being moderated by Charles Sertain of CTV. He'll be muting and holding the speakers in a virtual waiting room until it's their time to speak to the board. A reminder that applicants and agents should state their name for the record. Board members who must recuse themselves from any application will state so on the record and will be removed from the meeting until the end of the application discussion. Finally, in accordance with the Governor's order, this meeting will be recorded, transcribed, and will be made available to the public. We will be discussing applications in the order as they appear on the agenda, and we will start with number 1.
Okay.
That is JGF, and that's Matthew.
Okay. Claire's going to be doing the, the screens for me here. And there should be an aerial somewhere in there.
Yeah, upside down.
Yeah, the map is upside down. Okay, all right, there's the aerial. This is a new application for a 3-lot subdivision of a 3-acre property that's in the R20 zoning district. It's located at 257 Old Country Road in Eastport. The applicant submitted a pre-application that consists of a yield map that shows 4 lots and then a reduced density map that shows 3 lots. The 3-lot plan is the applicant's preferred plan. The 3 lots would be accessed via a common driveway. Like I said, it's just a pre-application. So we're here today, for completeness and to deem the application complete or incomplete. I've looked everything over. Looks like everything's in order, and the application would be complete and then ready for a hearing for June 11th.
Can you go back to the overhead for the aerial for a minute?
Sure.
I see. It's Old Country Road, but there's no road off. Is it Park Avenue that gets to the current configuration? It looks like it.
But they're accessing it from Old Country Road.
Okay.
Which is where they front on. And the yield map shows 4 lots. My guess is that they reduced the lots from 4 to 3 because of health department. I'm guessing, I didn't take a look, but my guess is this is in the groundwater management zone that requires 1-acre lots. So they had to reduce the yield from 4 to 3 in order to comply with health department.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
I'll move to deem complete and set the hearing.
Motion by Dennis, second by Glorian. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions. So.
And Madam Chair, I think we need to recognize Mr. Zuccarelli, who is formerly
John
absent, is now here. So we have 6.
Good. Thanks.
I've been waiting since 10 to 2. I didn't realize I had to do something.
We went out and got a sandwich, right? Oh.
No, I
also coming up.
I read the notice and I clicked on it. I didn't realize you had to do that.
Okay, number 2, pad construction, North Jones Road. Jackie, that's yours.
Hi, can you guys all see the document?
Too big. Okay,
There
now.
you go.
Yeah, there we
That's
go.
better.
Is that,
No.
That's the better resolution.
sorry, I was trying to use full screen mode. Okay, so this is a 2-lot subdivision in Hampton Bays located at 6 North Jones Road. And it is Suffolk County Tax Map number 900-253-1-8. This did receive a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals on November 7th, 2019, and which gave area relief for lot width and as well as the flagpole lot width to 16.2 where 20 is required. Because the survey does not show a matching survey to the ZBA variances requested, I am recommending that this application be deemed incomplete.
Okay.
There's also some items missing from the survey as well.
Okay. Any questions?
Motion to deem incomplete.
Motion by Dennis to deem incomplete. Second.
Second.
Second by Phil.
And there's the aerial.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All in favor? 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Thank
Okay,
you.
moving on to site plans. Number 3, the Shinnecock Hills Golf Club. That's Claire.
Yep. And Tony Panza's supposed to be let in, Charles, if you can. Is he there?
I'm here.
You're here, Tony?
Yeah, sorry, the live connection went down on the website,
Oh, it did?
Oh,
Oh,
there you are.
so I didn't know when to sign in.
okay.
We got you now.
Okay.
Great. I'll just do a background, Tony, and then if the board has any questions for you, they may. This is Shinnecock Hills Golf Club, the pro shop and parking. Planning Board had adopted a pre-submission report in December, and this is the site plan application that was submitted. It is for completeness action today and also SECRA. So that's the aerial. And here is the overview. And that's the parking that's being moved from this area to this area. And then the pro shop being relocated, I believe, to this area here. There's also another action that the applicants can speak to. Because of the COVID, the social distancing has to be part of the operation of the golf club. So they're requesting additional storage area in the form of a tent. I'll show you the tent area too. That's the secret documents. We can look at those too. This is the tent, which will be temporarily put up 30 by 50 with electricity to store the additional carts that'll be needed to socially distance. They're asking for 2 years, which was actually my suggestion, just in case they needed it through next summer, but it is up to you if you wanted just to do a 1-year basis and look at it next year too. But that's what they're asking for.
Will that tent be visible from County Road 39?
No, this is quite a large screen if you want to look. There's bins here. You can't even see these buildings that are present here from there, or this building. It's very screened.
30 by 50 foot tent on your plan? Yeah, that was from Tony Panza. It was 30 by, I think it got a little bigger, but it might have been 30 by 60. Oh, okay, yeah. 60.
Did you want to see any of the other documents? So the other action is the type, it is an unlisted action. We reviewed, I reviewed the parts 2 and the part 3. I'm recommending it issue a negative declaration. In the pre-submission report, you identified this as a New York State sensitive area, and you asked for a phase 1B. It was completed, and it recommended no further archaeological review in this case.
Right. Claire, could you just explain exactly what that meant? I'm not familiar with the different levels of review.
Okay, so the review of the phase 1,
yes.
Phase 1B. Yeah, so phase 1A is that you do a research to find out if this area has been used in the past for archaeological, and it has, because it's immediately adjacent to, you know, the reservation is very close to this area. And so New York State has identified this area in the circle and the squares map as an area of New York State archaeological significance. So when that happens, the planning board, when they do SECRA reviews, would ask for a phase 1B, which is actually a shuttle test in the area where the activity is happening. And that was completed per the standards for an archaeological survey.
So that's
And the conclusion is that they found no artifacts in that
I'm
document.
going to suggest that we have just a review after 1 year. Let us know how it's going along, rather than leaving it up for 2 years.
Okay, I can write that, no problem. I'll add it to this document if you're acceptable to that.
Can I ask a question about the shovel review? What areas were checked? Is it the whole area that's checked or just samplings?
Yeah, let me look at give you the plan here. I'll show you. It is the area only of disturbance. So it would have been this area right here, and they mark it up in the survey. And that's what you specified when you directed them to do the survey.
They're a little bit larger than the area that you just noted.
Okay.
Where the parking lot's coming out, they went up there, and where the caddy building's going in. So any
Up
area.
here, okay.
Yep, and also down by the caddy.
Great.
All right.
Can you just state your name for the record?
Yep, Tony Panza, architect for Shinnecock Hills Golf Club.
Great, thank you, Tony. Any other questions on this application?
Yes.
Phil, is that you?
I'm not going to be adamant about it, but I don't really have a problem with the 2 years for the tent because of the uncertainty of the COVID dilemma. I think it's going to take at least a year and probably 18 months to sort that out. I mean, I'm just thinking along those lines, and instead of limiting it to 1 year. But again, I'm not going to.
Just a review, for them to come back.
Right, there would be no fee if they came back. But the other thing is, yes, like Phil, I heard 18 months. So that's why I was suggesting 2 years, you know, at the long season, you know. But we can do 1 year and they can come right back next year and ask for the same.
Okay. We have a vote on this? A motion?
Motion.
Motion by Phil, second by someone?
Lorian.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention?
And Madam Chair, we should recognize that Mr. Blaney is with us.
Blaney is here. So we have a full board. Did you hear all of that, Blaney, or not? So 7 in favor. Okay. Moving down to the extensions, of which we have, I think, 9 extensions. The first one is number 4. Matthew, 56 Ridge Road.
Yep, 56 Ridge Road. Let me just get the resolution for you guys.
Sorry for disturbing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Can everybody see that? I have the resolution up?
Yep.
Yep.
It's an extension for an approval of a lot line modification at 56 Ridge Road and 95 Sugarloaf Road in Shinnecock Hills. If you're familiar, the aerial. That's the aerial. So this portion of the property where my cursor is going to this lot, and this bump out is going to this lot. Unfortunately, they're still at the health department, and being, you know, that we're in unprecedented times with COVID, deadlines were pushed forward. They were on pause. I did forward you all the new method for determining deadlines via email. I hope it was clear, but this extension, this will be their 6th, and it'll take them to August 29th of 2020.
Okay.
I move the motion.
Second.
Motion by John Zuccarelli, second by Dennis. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? 7 in favor. Number 5 is Mattson. Anthony, that's yours.
Yep. Claire was doing my maps for me. I don't know where she went, but the Mattson is a 2-lot subdivision on Montauk Highway in East Quogue. It's in the R20 zoning district. There, we did a pre-app report on this April 25th, 2019. They were looking to renew it, to bring it to April 25th, 2021. But as you guys know, we stopped the time frames on March 17th and then restarted calculating the new time starting today, as a matter of fact. So that would actually bring the pre-application report would have been valid until June 20th of this year. So I would recommend that we would do an extension to June 20th of 2021.
Any questions on it?
I'll move it. Motion.
Motion by Dennis, second.
I'll second.
by Phil. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? 7 in favor for June 2021.
Good.
Number 6 is Priscilla Avenue. Claire?
91 Priscilla Avenue. This was a 2-lot subdivision in Flanders in the R15 zoning district. It's 91, Claire.
91.
91, yeah.
Priscilla Avenue. You just had it up.
Yeah, you had it up
There
when
it
you were talking Mattson.
It's the aerial.
Oh, this is Mattson, or it's
That looks like it's
Now it's Priscilla.
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 okay.
Is there an aerial before that, or?
Yeah. There we go.
Yep, 91 Priscilla. So they're just looking to split that property. Requires relief. We did a pre-application report on this one that was dated March 28th, 2019, which would have brought it to March 28th, 2020. When we stopped the counting and then recalculate it, it would bring the report valid until May 23rd of 2020. So I'm recommend that we extend it from 1 year to May 23rd of 2021.
Okay.
Motion.
Motion by Dennis, second by Gloria, and all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor. Now there's another one, 148.
148 Priscilla, we did this at the same time. There'll be a aerial with this one. So this is also a 2-lot subdivision in the R15 zoning district in Flanders on Priscilla Avenue. They also need relief from the ZBA on this one, which they're currently before. This was also one that was good until March 28th of 2020. But with the tolling of the time, it would have been valid until May 23rd of 2020. And I'm recommending that we extend it until May 23rd of 2021.
Okay, so you're giving them a full year.
Giving them a full, yeah, the pre-app reports are valid for 1 year.
Okay, so any discussion or motion?
Motion.
Motion by Zuccarelli, second by Gloria. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor. Okay. I don't see, oh, there's Blaney over there, okay. Number 8, the Woods at Hampton Bays. It's Jackie Fenlon.
Yes. Let me share the resolution. So the Woods at Hampton Bays, this is at the preliminary stage. We granted preliminary approval in September of 2019. They have requested a 6-month extension, which with the tolling would bring them to November 15th, 2020. They are still working on their health department approval.
Okay. Any questions or a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Dennis, second by Zuccarelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor. Okay, we're moving down to number 9. Jackie, that's you, Middle Line Highway.
Yes, that is mine as well. Middle Line Highway. Let me just share again. Sorry. There we go. Middle Line Highway. This is a 3-lot subdivision on the corner of Deerfield Road and Middle Line Highway. This is a cluster plan preserving over 65%. I think it's 66.1. And this is an extension, which with 90-day extension, which with the tolling would bring them until September 25th, 2020. I was just made aware by the applicant, who is actually present, John Borquin, that they did just receive the health department maps back, which was a challenge because their engineer had passed away previously. And we are working on the legal documents as well.
So that extension holds, right, to September 25th, 2020?
September 25th, 2020.
Okay, motion?
Motion.
Motion by Gloria and second by Robin. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 7 in favor. Number 10 is M4 Lumber Holdings. Jackie, that's you?
Yes, that's mine as well. Let me share the screen. So this is also a 90-day extension. Let me just bring you to that. This is a 4-lot cluster plan with an agricultural reserve on Lumber Lane at 820 Lumber Lane in the hamlet of Bridgehampton. So this is actually their 9th extension. Sorry, it's not 10th. And their applicant is present, Brian Locascio. Some of the board members did have concerns that this was the 9th extension. So Brian Locascio is here to speak on the matter. The board would like to hear from them, but with the 90-day extension and the tolling, this would bring their extension to September 11th, 2020. So Charles, if you could let Brian Locascio in, that would be great.
You can just unmute us. He's there. You can just unmute.
See and hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Brian Locascio with the Adam Miller Group, 2462 Main Street, Suite 7, attorney for the applicant. I'd already submitted a written explanation as to why we are where we are, and as explained in that email, the use of this property has kind of changed for our client. When he originally purchased it, he was married with children. He had since gone through a divorce. So it's now his property rather than what was intended to be a family estate. And earlier this year, I had met with Kathleen and Jackie as to a consideration to reallocate the 4 buildable lots so they're more equal in size. There was an intent, if we were going to go that route, to have a revised application and map submitted before this hearing. That did not happen, one, because everything closed down in mid-March, and I've just re-engaged with the applicant about 2 weeks ago. We're trying to get the surveyor back on board to answer some final questions for our client as to whether or not he wants to amend the map, in which case it'll likely require a new public hearing. If not, we would look to get final approval, close out this application with the existing map.
Jackie, you have all the materials to date?
Yeah, actually, I have been working very closely with Brian. So I have reviewed the maps, and there was some issues with the drainage easement location that we had asked for in the approval, which was modified by Brian the fall after the approval. I also reviewed the surveys, and Kathleen actually has also reviewed the legal documents pertinent to this approval as well. So I have been working with Brian closely, but the delay is on the owner at this point.
Any other questions? A motion for M4? By Phil, second by Robin. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? 7 in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So September 11th, correct, for the extension date?
September 11th, 2020.
Thank you very much.
Brian.
Yep.
Okay, number 11 is Monteverdi. Jackie, that's you?
Yes, let me just share the area to refresh the board's memory. This is a lot line modification in East Quogue at 9 and 11 Jackson Avenue. Let me just get to that. Oh, so there's the resolution. This extension would bring them to October 13th. They actually their 90 days was just up during the COVID tolling. So this would give them to October 13th, 2020. And this is the property, if you'll recall, these are 2 very undersized lots in East Quogue, pre-existing non-conforming. So the L-shaped one is essentially giving that rear yard to the cottage in the front of it.
So it's a straight divide.
Yeah, so then they'll just both look like, nice little rectangles after the transfer. I actually do have all legal documents were approved, and I believe the applicant's representative has health department approval. They're just waiting for their maps to be signed. So I'm hoping to finalize this one shortly.
Okay. Any questions or motion? Motion by Gloria, second by Dennis. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor. Okay, the last extension is Christopher Mead, and Matthew, that's you.
Yeah, let me just bring the resolution up for you guys. This is for an agricultural construction permit on at 17 Mecox Bay Lane in Watermill. Let me just get you guys the aerial if you're familiar. The barn's going right down here. And what they're doing, this is an extension of the modification. They were actually swapping the location of the barn and the parking area. So now the barn's going to be further away from wetlands. The parking area will be slightly closer. This will be their first 90-day extension. And I believe with the tolling, it'll take them to September 2nd of 2020. And I have John and I believe Wayne from O'Shea, Marcinsick, and Bruin here.
Correct.
Are there any questions on this? If not, I have a motion. Motion by Dennis, second by Zuccarelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor. So we finished the extensions.
Thank you.
And now we're in development. And number 13 going down the agenda is 32 South Phillips Avenue, and that's Anthony.
Yep. It is Claire. Hey, Claire. Yeah, thanks. So this is a 4-lot subdivision. There's the aerial that you can see of a 4-acre piece of property on South Phillips Avenue in Spionk. It's in the R40 zoning district and the New York State Archaeological Sensitive Area. And then I think there's a map, Claire, right after that. Yep. And so they would show 4 lots, 2 in the front and then 2 flag strips in the back. We held a public hearing on this, and so we have a pre-app report that identifies the issues, and I'll just go through it page by page. The first page is up on the screen. We have a description of the action, which I just talked about, 4-lot subdivision, 4-acre property in the R20 zoning district. The standard plan consists of 4 lots, 2 in the front and then 2 flag strips in the back. They all front on South Phillips Avenue. This cluster plan is not warranted in this case, given that there's no adjacent open space in and around the area. Next page, Claire. This is a minor review under the town code regarding conformance with zoning. It looks like they need some lot width variances for the lots, and the applicant is aware of that. The other issue is that under the town code, it's not a zoning requirement, it's a design standard. Flag lots are supposed to be 1.5 times the lot area of, the minimum. So that would require 60,000 square foot for the lots, for the flag lots in this case. The 2 lots in the back, they don't meet that. So what we're doing is we're recommending that the 2 lots in the front, that they take any excess square footage from those lots in the front, put them in the back so they could try to meet that 1.5 times as much as possible. And we'll get to that in the recommendations. The seeker classification, this is a type 2 action. It's a minor subdivision. It's not in a critical environmental area, but it is in the archaeological sensitive area, so we typically have to require the phase 1A and 1B archaeological report. The applicant is aware of this. The park requirement on the bottom of the page will be satisfied with a payment of a fee, as there's really no room on the property to provide a park. Public hearing was held in February 13th of 2020. No comments were received. No comments were received during the written comment period. The project is not subject to the Workforce Housing Act. We did referrals. On the next couple of pages, we have some comments from the engineer. They're mostly related to the standard common driveway. The 2 big things are we are requiring a common driveway here for all 4 lots, which the engineering division would like. And they also going to need a speedies permit, which is noted by the engineer here as well. Next page there, Office of Fire Prevention didn't have any comments, just a standard comment regarding street addresses. On the bottom of this page and the next page, we have comments from the Historic Board. There are some of them. The bottom line regarding Historic Board is 2 things. They want the archaeological done, which we have to require anyway. And they would like to see the existing building, which is on one of the lots, retained if possible. There's some historic value there as it dates back to 1925 or so. But it's not an historic, designation. Anything they want to do to the house, whether it's a addition or any changes, or if they wanted to demolish it, does have to go to landmarks. So we'll have to hash that out during the final application. The applicant hasn't indicated what they're doing with the house yet. On the bottom of that page, the Trails Advisory Board, I do have a letter from them. I'll put in the date of the letter that there are no trail implications for this property. And those were the only referrals. So regarding my comments or recommendations, number 1, proposed subdivision requires zoning relief from the planning, in order for the planning board to consider approving the project, and that the pre-app report shall serve as referral comments to the ZBA. And I always advise the applicant to consult with the building division to confirm any relief that they need. Number 2, the area of lots 1 and 3 that are in excess of 40,000 square feet should be incorporated into the flag lots, which are lots 2 and 4. As already stated, that's to bring the lots into conformance with the 1.5 times, or to try to bring it into conformance as much as possible. They're not going to reach 60,000, but they'll be closer. Number 3, a single common driveway and utility easement shall be provided within the flag portions of lots 2 and 4 and shall serve all 4 lots within the subdivision. Number 4, the property is located within the New York State Archaeological Sensitive Area, and therefore Phase 1A, 1B report shall be required. Number 5, I highlighted and I noted retention of existing residents. I think I'm just going to put a general statement in there that it's going to be subject to review by the Landmarks Board, and the applicant needs to indicate what the intentions are with that house. Number 6, a 25-foot wide naturally vegetated buffer shall be provided along the southerly property boundary and the easterly property boundary in order to provide screening to the adjacent residential properties. There's really nothing on the road there, so I don't think we need to do any road buffering. 7, compliance with the engineer requirements. 8, compliance with the Office of Public Safety regarding property addresses. 9, the final map shall contain all of the submission and mapping requirements as required for final applications. And number 10, the final application shall include Suffolk County Department of Health Services.
Is there an applicant who wants to speak to this, Anthony?
No, they had no objections to anything in the report and couldn't be here, and they said they will, address everything.
Okay. Any questions from anyone?
I'll move to adopt the report.
Second.
Moved by Dennis and seconded by Zuccarelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? 7 in favor. Anthony, the old stables at Spionk, number 14. That's your rescheduling.
Yep, just a little reminder where this is. We've been looking at this a long time. There should be an aerial after the So this is the density incentive plan that's on, where are we actually here? On Phillips Avenue in Spionk also. It's a 7-acre property. This is the one where they have a yield of 6 lots and they're doing a 9-lot density incentive plan. Those 3 extra lots will be for affordable housing. And then there would be 6 market rate, 3 for affordable housing. There's 25% open space in the rear of the property. We've been looking at this for some time, and we're just looking to reschedule the hearing, which would be for June 11th of 2020.
A motion for that to reschedule?
Motion.
Motion by Gloria and second by Zuccarelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 7 in favor. Anthony, number 15 is yours. Farrell.
Number 15 is mine. Yep, Farrell Butter Lane. Claire will help me out here.
Another pre-application report.
Yep. So we looked at this also. This is a property on Butter Lane. It's in the LI 40 zoning district. And, they come in for a 4-lot subdivision. They think there's a map right after that. Yep. 3 lots in the front, 1 lot in the back. That 1 lot in the back is shown to be accessed by a 10-foot wide flag strip. It's supposed to be 20 feet. That lot in the back also, I think, lacks lot width. So between that and the flag strip, they would need zoning board approval in order for the planning board to proceed with this application. I know that there are activities going on the property and violations, and we'll get to them when I go through my report. So it's a 4-lot, like I said, subdivision in LI 40, and I have a report. There we go. Perfect. So the first page, it's a description of the action, which we went through, 4-lot subdivision, which will be used for warehousing and special trade contractors. This is a standard plan. We don't require a cluster plan in this case. It's an industrial neighborhood and not adjacent to existing open space. On the next page. Claire, can you go to the next page?
Yeah.
Thanks. We had the public hearing on February 13th, followed by a 10-day written comment period. We didn't receive any comments. This is not subject to the Long Island Workforce Housing Act. We did the referrals. On the next couple of pages, we have referrals from the town engineer. Pretty standard. The two big things, one, this is going to require a speedies permit and SWIP, which we know about. So they'll need to do that as part of the site plans. And also they would like a common driveway serving the lots, which we have in our report, which I'll get to when we get to my recommendations. On the bottom of page 4, we have comments from the Office of the Town Provider Prevention. And looks like everything's in order there. No specific comments from them. Trails Advisory Board on the next page, no trail implications. Health Department, there is no pending application with the agency, but we know they require Health Department approval prior to getting a building permit. Southampton Town Landmarks and Historic Districts Board, we got a lot of comments from them, which are outlined on the next couple of pages. Largely a couple things. Number one, there had been an addition to the barn structure without any permits. They had taken down the existing residence without any permits, which they're trying to rectify now. So there's been some violations on the property. For the historic board, they want the removal of the barn structure, if it was to do that, to go before them, and I think we have to, given its age. But they generally don't have much substantive comments regarding the subdivision. I believe the property is in an archaeological sensitive area and is going to require
1A and B.
Yeah, it is. It's in an archaeological sensitive area, so it will require 1A and B.
But they almost totally cleared it, that site, and they've moved mounds and mounds of dirt. So,
yep. In the report, I've indicated, I've taken directly from the code enforcement webpage, the violations that were on the property. They have to rectify them. Some of them are being rectified. I don't think they've received the building permit for the addition yet. And obviously they don't have site plan approval for the use of the property that's going on right now. So those are the two big ones. Regarding the recommendations, first one, the staff report will serve as ZBA referral comments in the event that the applicant proceeds with the variance application. But I think they should look at the design of the subdivision a little bit. The variances aren't major, but if they could redesign it to eliminate the need for variances, they should take a look at that. Number 2, the planning board finds the stockpiling, storage of materials and construction vehicles to be a violation of the town code, as site plan special exception approval has not been secured. All such activities must stop, and the applicant must submit a site plan application to obtain planning board approval if they wish to continue to use the site for industrial uses. It's not. I'm not saying that an industrial use is not appropriate for an industrial property. But the problem is we didn't do site plan approval, so we don't know how construction vehicles are coming in and out of the site, where stuff is being stockpiled, landscape buffering, and landscaping in general, that kind of stuff that we addressed during site plan to sort of soften the impacts of an industrial use. So it's required. They have to do it. So I put it in there. Number 3, final approval cannot be granted by the planning board until all violations have been resolved. Number 4, future removal of the remaining barn structure would be subject to landmarks board review. 5, it appears there was an addition to the barn without any approvals, and the applicant is advised to consult with the building department to secure the necessary permits. Number 6, access for lots, should say 1, 2, 3, and 4, should be shared through a common driveway. I think that would make sense to have one access point for all the industrial properties. Just like the other ones in the area, they're going to have interconnected parking lots, I'm sure. The only thing is, it's 10 feet wide. If the zoning board does entertain a 10-foot wide flag strip, what they'll need to do is they'll need to add a 5-foot wide easement on either side in order to accommodate 20-foot wide, which is what we're going to need to have access. As we said in here, every effort should be made to design it so we don't have to do that.
A single road that goes in can certainly access the back fourth lot. So
yeah, for sure. So they need to address that. Number 7, the applicant shall show the front yard setback for lot 2, which will need to be 150 feet in order to meet the minimum lot requirement. 8, the applicant shall provide a map showing building envelopes for each lot. During the future review of this, I think we should see those building envelopes so we can sort of get a sense of how the site plans are going to lay out, based on the design. Number 9, the proposed action is classified as an unlisted action pursuant to SECRA, and it's located within the New York State Archaeological Sensitive Area and is required to do a Phase 1A and 1B. Compliance with the town engineer's comments, compliance with the Office of the Public Safety regarding property addresses, and the final map shall include Suffolk County Department of Health Services approval. That's what I have on mine.
I think you've covered it all, Anthony.
Yeah, I think we got everything. I think the applicant wanted to speak. If Brian's still there.
I'm here, Brian Lucasio with the Adam Miller Group, attorney for the applicant. I've had a chance to review and go over this with Anthony, and we're okay with the recommendations in the report.
Okay. So any comments? Do I have a motion to approve the report?
I have a comment.
Sure.
Process, actually. There seems to be a lot of things that have gone on the property that need to be fixed. And from a process standpoint, should we actually accept a pre-app report without those things being taken care of first?
Gotcha, Gloria. So the answer to that question is yes. A pre-application report is not a subdivision approval. It's not an approval of. It's an initial phase designed to identify any and all issues, including violations that are on the property. The planning board would not be able to do anything during the final application, sign off on the subdivision at that stage with violations on the property. But a pre-application report we can, and to identify any of the issues on the property.
Thank you.
Good. Good explanation, Anthony.
No problem.
Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Zuccarelli, second by Glorian. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor.
Good.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Brian.
Nice day.
Bye, Brian.
Moving on to number 16, JB Properties, Lexus, that's Claire.
Yeah.
There you are.
Yeah. Well, so we'll go back. So this we reviewed on March 12th, which seems so long ago, for a pre-submission report. This is the Lexus dealership with an addition proposed, and additional storage in the rear. So when we reviewed this with the applicant's representative, Mike Shiano, which I think should be unmuted, and then I think John Bennett also wanted to be speaking on this.
As well as Bailey.
And Bailey, yes. So if you can add them to it. I'll just give it an overview. What we were doing is, you can see the elevations here. We just wanted to tighten up the language in the report before we adopted it. Number 1 was fine with the unlisted action. 2 was the property subject to full site plan review for the extension or the addition. At the time, there was no limit of size of clearing when it was originally approved in 2002. The ZBA will need to grant variances for the size of the building greater than 15,000 square feet, increasing to a total of 22,834 square feet. The planning board finds this expansion is almost 40% and is too much in relation to the size of the property. 4, the ZBA will need to grant variances for a parking variance for the additional area of the building and outdoor storage of vehicles, 18 parking spaces. Number 5, with the original approval, the rear and in front 50 feet were retained as transitional buffers pursuant to the code. The applicant, number 6, proposed outdoor display in the front transition. The planning board does not support this variance, and the applicant has agreed to keep the 50-foot front transition free from outdoor display. Number 7, the applicant is proposing the use of the rear buffer to 10 feet for storage of vehicles. Planning board suggests an alternative location for car storage. The planning board is able to waive 330-83G pursuant to 330-83G1D if the goals of the transition yard are met. 8, from the aerial, the outdoor storage of vehicles in the rear is occurring now. The site plan fee shall be doubled per code. 9, with the original approval and modification, the area of future cross-access was limited to the rear 50 feet. The applicant is proposing that if the cross-access is implemented by the town, the applicant agrees to remove the outdoor storage from the rear 50 feet to allow for the cross-access to be facilitated. A detailed plan for the establishment of the cross-access and where the outdoor storage would go if the outdoor storage is implemented. 10, the appearance of the building shall be revisited. The planning board and the architectural review board will work with the applicant in the design. 11, outdoor storage vehicles in the parking shall be noted as shell setbacks. Parking for the outdoor storage shall be specified. 12 is the appearance of the rear prep bay building, parking requirements for the rear prep bay building to be met. 13 is the prep building. Prep bay is a car garage. Nature of wastewater treatment will be zero discharge. And then 14 is referrals, and 15 is the public hearing will be required for the application. So those were the language. We will have the applicant speak if the planning board doesn't have any questions.
Okay. Who is speaking now?
John. Yeah, John, you can go first.
Yeah, I think I'll take it, Mike.
Yep.
So what I'm trying to have the board be aware of is that this is an attempt to make this Lexus dealership competitive in terms of current trends in the way cars are serviced and sold, and serviced, which is why you saw a similar application which you granted, the Zoning Board of Appeals granted. Ultimately, you did in your site plan approval on the Mercedes dealership. We're trying to keep this car dealership competitive. You see, if you look at the car dealership manuals, generally 3 acres is the minimum site. This is quite a little bit shy, so we're trying to do this in a way that keeps car dealerships competitive. I'm particularly sensitive to that because the village of Southampton lost both its Chevrolet dealership and its Ford dealership, both of which were on Hill Street because of the inability to keep with the manufacturer's standards. So that's what this is about. Now, let me talk to you about the concern about the additional size. This is not going to change from a mass point of view from the passerby on North Highway because there are 3 pods in effect of expansion, and the first 2 are enclosing already roofed areas. So it's not going to change from a massing point of view. It's interesting, to the extent that you consider this a non-conforming structure, the Zoning Board of Appeals in 2 cases I was involved with some time ago, one was the We Got It Auto Parts and the other one was the J&V Salvage case, said to the extent that you're housing an area of use, an existing area of use, that's actually not indeed an increase in the degree of nonconformity. So that's one of the things I'll be arguing before the Zoning Board of Appeals. But from a planning point of view, I wanted to point out a couple things in addition to the fact that they will not be increasing the mass. And that goes back to the rationale for the 15,000 square foot limitation in the highway business zone. You see, we meet all the coverage standards. From an overall planning perspective and zoning perspective, of course, those limitations came out of the master plans. We're in conformity with that. But why did the town introduce the 15,000 square foot limitation in the Viridian case? The basic, I'm quoting, this is not my language, I'm quoting from the Zoning Board of Appeals. The basic purpose for the town board's enactment of the law had to do with curtailing large square footage box stores or retail stores that would, if allowed, have a negative economic effect on the downtown areas and the surrounding village business areas. Automobile dealerships have traditionally been of a larger size than typical downtown retail shops and have typically been placed on the highway. Indeed, almost all of the automobile dealerships in the town of Southampton are on the highway. and efforts have been made to foster the location of such uses on the highway. And also in the matter of 275-241 County Road 39, there was similar language saying that since this is not a box store, that 15,000, the whole rationale for the 15,000 square feet limitation goes out the window. I said this before the Zoning Board of Appeals, and I've said this before in front of the Planning Board. I've on numerous occasions approached members of the town board asking them to change the law as it related to automobile dealerships and some other large retail item uses, and the reaction has been, we'd prefer that you deal it with the planning board and the zoning board on a case-by-case basis. We understand what you're saying, but you know how once something gets in the law, it's hard to change it. And I understand that as a political reality, but I don't think that that should affect your planning response. This is not a big box store. We're not going to change the mass or size as seen from County Road 39. We're merely enclosing these things. We're trying to continue to make this economically competitive. John Burns spent an awful lot of money constructing and building this, designing this building in an area where the town is allowed essentially glorified butler buildings. So it's probably one of the standout architectural examples on County Road 39. It speaks seriousness. We want to keep it competitive. We want people buying cars and employing people out in Southampton. We want that on the highway business where it's supposed to be. And we'd like you to support the expansion of the building, particularly when at least 50% of the expansion, more or less, is in areas that are already an area of use and roofed over. Then as it relates to the area of the outdoor parking, which is essentially for storage, for whatever it's worth, this was an area and design that was previously previewed with Kyle Collins, who of course is no longer employed by the town, but obviously is a great planning skill. And his comment was, perfect area for it. You've got ag reserve back there. So the concerns about the transitional yard, which are by definition to buffer commercial from residential uses, are not at all, at play here. So I'd like you to consider supporting this attempt to keep this a vibrant area for sales and inconsistent with current sales and service practices, as with the Mercedes changes. We did pull away the request for some front yard display. We had taken that from a variance that was allowed on the Mercedes building for display pods, but we took that away in hopes that the board would see that we're flexible and agree with the rest of the application. We, of course, will make that application to the Zoning Board of Appeals regardless of the board's recommendations, but we would like to have you with a joint partner in that application.
John, could I jump in? This is Dennis. I hear your message. It's probably a place between objecting to an application and support, where we can just maybe it would be appropriate just to advise the board, bring the ZBA's attention to the degree of variance. As you can understand, our board can't really support and embrace anything that conflicts with the code. Our message to applicants is always, comply with the code or address it through the legislative process. But maybe Anthony, I'm looking at your report on item 3. The planning. Oh, I'm sorry, Claire. The second sentence says the planning board finds this expansion is almost 40% and is too much in relation to the size of the property. I mean, I'm suggesting maybe we could modify that phrase. We're making a judgment call, maybe modify it just to the language that we're alerting to the Zoning Board of Appeals that it is 40%.
Okay, so leave the ands off. And is too much in relation to this side of the property. Just say expansion is almost 40%, period.
I think that's what, you know, that it's not supporting. It's making a statement to the ZBA that that it's a significant variance, which they probably know, or maybe they don't know. We're just stating that. But John, you understand we can't.
That's all I could ask for. I would greatly appreciate that. I think maybe we can differ about whether or not you as a board can, in certain instances, suggest the granting of the variances. You've done it before, but I'm not going to push my luck here. I think that I would be more than happy if you just took that position, and would greatly appreciate it.
Okay. How's the other board members feel? Is that okay?
I think the words too much, but it's a 40% expansion on the size of this parcel, whatever the size is. Maybe you want to say whatever that size is.
I think she does.
Claire, it's a 32.8% increase.
Okay. To be very accurate.
Yeah, just.
Mike, can you just state your name, Mike, please?
Yes, it's Mike Sciano from InterScience Research Associates. I'm the applicant for and agent for JAB Properties.
I have a question, Mike, about the number of vehicles that are stored.
Yes.
The number of vehicles that are stored now. And was there a time when some of those cars were stored elsewhere across the street, or am I confusing you with another?
That's the Mercedes application.
And I believe there may have been another dealership application where we had this conversation briefly, Jackie, when we talked about it in March. But I think that maybe even like either the Audi dealership or another dealership, there was some question about them parking or storing cars somewhere else.
Do we have a cross-access agreement with the property to the west? Like the patio furniture place, or what's next to?
Let me just think about this. Let me look at the aerial real quick, and I can remember.
The West is a nightclub, isn't it?
No, it's
No.
the patio store.
It's the outdoor patio store.
Oh, no, it's the nightclub.
Nightclub.
Ah.
Yeah, there's no they have no Brewster cross access at this time. The one to the east is Mahoney, right?
Yes.
They do have one.
They do have one.
Yeah, and then one source is beyond that, east of that, and they have one.
Mm-hmm.
No, wait a minute. One source is two buildings east of that.
If just historically, Jackie, John, but BMW was parking across the street for a while.
That's who it was, right behind the diner.
They were using the old.
Behind the diner.
Yep.
Okay, so are there any other modifications to the report other than just taking out too large, but saying it's a 40%?
Is that what you want? Just the too much part, the two letters?
Yeah, I think the intent was. I'm sorry, Jackie. The message should just to direct the board's attention to the degree of relief they're seeking.
Okay.
And that's just a neutral statement.
Okay.
Lorian, did you have a comment here?
I just wanted Claire to then restate what we were discussing so that we could hear what it's going to say, what it's going to read.
The planning, so the second part of that paragraph, the planning board finds the expansion is 32.8% in relation to the size of the building and the size of the property. Is it good?
Size of the building.
Size of the building, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, Mike, yeah, I think so.
Yep.
In relation to the size of the building.
Right.
Okay.
Dennis, you look like you're flying a Beechcraft.
my son set me up with this, but I don't know.
That's good.
And John, what did you say? I'm sorry. John, what did you say? How much of this that you want is underneath the existing roof line?
Let me give it to you right now. So there is an existing roof area of 1,451 square feet located on the east side. And then 1,261 square feet of existing roof display in the front. So that's a total of about, what do I have there? About 2,000.
2,600.
2,600, 2,700. And then about the same amount for an expansion of the existing service department. So yeah, I was right. About 50% of it is already, 50% of the request is enclosing already roofed area, and the other 50% is in the back. And I think it's fair to say is not going to be add to the mass of the building generally as it's seen from the passerby on North Highway.
Okay, good. That's what I thought I heard. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Do you want to adopt the report?
Yeah.
I'll move to adopt the report
Dennis?
as amended.
Zuccarelli, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? In favor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
And number 17, the West Hampton Country Club. Claire, that's you. Staff report.
Yes. So luckily we already went through the staff reports. So
Yay.
last thing we have to do. I will be going through the resolution, but I just want to remind you where we're at with this because it was a couple months ago. So this is the existing maintenance area. See it on the aerial. And it is adjacent to wetlands. The recommendation where we left it is the recommendation from the Conservation Board. I'm sorry, Joe Lombardi will join us, and I think Vinnie Gaudiella will also join us on this one. They're the applicants. Conservation wanted a 50-foot buffer, so some of the parking was relocated and land banked in this area so they could achieve this 50-foot buffer here with a non-fertilization buffer established through the wetlands process. You'll be issuing the wetlands permit too. We will also be doing the SECRA on this. We held off on SECRA to get the DEC feedback and to get the conservation setback. So they've approved it now or indicated their approval. So this is the SECRA with regard to the wetlands on the property. Going back. So, and also we were waiting for the town engineer. So they have reviewed the plans and now they have approved it with some conditions. So that is all part of this decision. Did anybody have any questions? I can go through it. I don't know if the applicant wants to speak first. Any, are they present, Joe and Vinnie?
I don't see them or hear them.
Joe is here. I guess, can I unmute him?
Joe's in the waiting room. Oh, there's Joe. Hey, Joe.
Hi, how are you, Dennis?
Good.
Hi, Jackie.
Hi.
Oh yeah, there you are, the Rayner group. Okay. You're still here underneath there. Okay. So any questions, Joe, before I go through the resolution?
No, we went through the resolution and the other reports, and we don't have any problems with or questions, and I'm ready to comply with whatever conditions there are.
So I'll go back to the resolution. I'll start with, so I'm recommending a negative declaration based upon the wetlands recommendations, as I said. And so wetlands permit would be the first action. Well, the first action would be the negative declaration. The second would be the wetlands permit. These are the typical conditions here. So I'll just go through those. The specific ones are going to be construction to meet site final plan, the 50-foot non-disturbance buffer, and the project is going to use the IA system in this area, which is good. They're going to be upgraded. So the conditions of approval for the site plan, adopting the staff report is the conditions for the town engineer to be addressed. Note the 50-foot non-disturbance buffer on the landscape plan. Changes to the building elevations, just note the materials and colors. Fire marshal requirements, LED should be less than 3,000 K. HVA systems, screens, no lighting fixtures, no additional lighting without planning board approval. All outdoor lights shall project downward. No public address sound systems. Speed east requirements, engineered inspections, SWIP requirements, the fee, and the submission of the land bank covenants, affidavit, 10 sets of plans, and any existing non-conforming lighting should be removed. And my one question for you was if you'd want a maintenance bonds in this area. There is a little landscaping happening on the property. Do you want me to show you where that is? But I don't know if you want a maintenance bond with it.
Well, how much is there, Claire? I mean, we don't see anything here.
Yeah, it's not, I'm sorry, I don't think I included the landscape.
I have a question about the non-disturbance buffer.
Sure.
Will there be any kind of fencing or perimeter demarcation around that? Joe? Joe, can you hear me?
Yes. We weren't proposing a fence along there.
That's the edge of the pavement, basically, right? Are you going to have the edge? Is that the edge of the pavements?
What about the other?
Joe?
Yeah, it's essentially that, and there's also an area of some cedar trees in there that provide screening.
In this area right here?
Yeah, we're going to extend that to provide additional screening.
Okay. So that's kind of like, that demarks it, Jackie, is that the, going from here, going north is going to be an edge of landscaping.
And what's the lower line, the lower portion of the, it's 50 feet, the buffer, right?
50 feet, so it kind of dips in here. Can you see that? Yeah, so that'll be the edge of the pavement for the parking lot.
So, I mean, is there any protection for runoff or any environmental concerns about a parking lot right snubbed up against the edge of wetlands?
It's got a 50-foot buffer now. Before, the buffer was 33 feet. So you're creating you're improving a non-conforming situation. Before, there was no drainage in this area. This is going to be fully drained. None of the wetland. It cannot run off into the wetlands. It'll be designed in such a way it's running to the structures now. That is the intention of the buffer.
Okay.
So usually, ideally, if this was a new project, it would be 75 feet. But because it was a pre-existing condition and then it's tight, there's other things going on here. They've increased their buffer to the 50 feet, and that is acceptable to both the DEC, who's issued a permit, and conservation.
Conservation. And so where is the sewer treatment plant going to be?
I think to the north here, is that correct, Joe?
No, it's a little bit towards the opposite end of the building.
This end?
Yeah, and
okay.
Yep. Right in there.
The setbacks, right? Meeting the setbacks. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And we'll also be putting an IA system in for the halfway house.
Which is here, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks. Any other questions on this?
And so, no, yes to the maintenance bond, right? Is that what we're doing? Okay. So your consideration.
Motion for approval.
Motion by Dennis, second by Phil. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor. Number 18, Flying Point LLC 1.
Thank you.
Watermill. Thank you, Joe. Claire, this is you.
Yeah, and so that's, if you look, if you've driven by the corner of Montauk Highway and County Road 39, they're very close to completing the site. All the landscaping is in, and this will be to set the maintenance bonds for the landscaping.
Replace the trees that were dead, right?
Marty says they're not dead.
Marty took a look?
Yes.
Some of them are brown, but they're not dead.
Had Marty take a look at them. They are not dead. But that's the point of the landscape plan, the thing. But they're not dead, he said. So.
Okay.
So this would be to set it for $56,000.
Is that for the whole site?
Yes, for the 2 properties. Even though it says just 1 here, it is for 1 and 2.
Confusing. Okay, motion on that?
Motion.
Motion.
Dennis, second by Phil. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 7 in favor. Number 19, Watermill Shops. We're looking at for a freestanding sign. Claire?
Yes. So this is Watermill Shops in Watermill.
Is this a replacement of the sign that's there?
No, this is the front. This is Montauk Highway. This is Station Road. And in the back, there is a sign, but it never got approvals for now I'm gonna, the next page, but you can see it's tucked in between the two buildings. There's this existing sign, and they're proposing this monument sign, and they're entitled to it because the rear of the property is a public access way. So this has been submitted to the ARB, and the ARB approved the sign, subject to it also being a type of directional sign. As you can see, it indicates which way to go for the different businesses. So I think it's an improvement. It actually matches in the color and design the existing front sign, which says the mill on it.
And how is this lighted? Is it lighted?
It is not.
It is not lighted?
And Brant, are you here?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Brant Reiner from Inter Science. Hi, everyone. Brant Reiner from Inter Science on behalf of the applicant. This sign actually technically has no light fixtures attached to it, but as you can see, there is a light pole directly above it.
Right.
So it has some incidental light that sort of reflects onto it. And it is intended to replace the existing sign that is there, that has been there, we believe, almost as long as the site has been developed. We cannot find any permits that might have been issued for it, but we do have a letter from the building inspector recognizing that the replacement of the sign is consistent with what would be allowed by the sign code allowances. So the intention here is to replace the existing sign with a blue sign that matches the monument sign along Montauk Highway that this board and the ARB approved a few years ago. So it just gives some more consistency to the site.
And you've submitted a paint chip, color chip for that, right? I can't see.
They have not, so the only condition is that they submit the blue type color, but it's to match the other sign. Is that correct, Brant?
Yeah, the colors are exactly the same.
Just submit a color sample so that we can attach it.
Is that okay, Brant?
Sure.
Great, so we'll put that in the condition. Anything else? How approval?
I don't know if maybe might be our only opportunity to maybe insert something in the condition that the temporary signs that we see repeatedly placed on Long Montauk Highway are prohibited. And
oh, the little ones that stick in?
Yeah.
I didn't mean to put that in there, sorry.
Maybe
the temporary non-conforming signs be removed from the property.
Yeah.
Is that good?
Yeah, they usually line along 27.
Yep.
Yeah, like sandwich. I'll give examples like sandwich boards and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, and also they're like election signs. You know, they just stick in with
They stick in the ground. Yeah.
Ground signs.
That's no problem. Have it cleaned up before they get a building permit for their sign. Okay.
That amendment, I'll move to approve.
Dennis, second.
Second.
Carly, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Number 20, Richard Sullivan, Lot 2. Matthew, that's you.
Yep, let me just bring the resolution up for you guys. This is a revegetation. It's property that's just over 21,000 square feet in the subdivision map of Richard Sullivan at 373 Woodland Drive. If you can see here the aerial, there we go. It's on the corner of Woodland Drive and Sellington Way. What has happened is the owner of this property is doing an addition, and they have blown out the whole, basically these two front yards, and along this hill here. The revegetation plan's pretty good. They're planting just about 40 trees on the property to make it up for everything that's been, taken out. They were between 80 and 90% cleared, where I believe only 60% is required.
Are they substantial trees?
Yeah, everything that gets planted everything that was removed was substantial, and what's going to go in, meets our recommendations, which is a 3-inch caliber tree.
What kind of trees?
They're red oak, black oak, scarlet oak, and I'm not sure if there's pitch pine here or not, but mostly the trees.
There are no evergreens here.
I don't think so. There's some American holly, some maple trees, scarlet oak, black oak, and some eastern red cedar as well. And then your typical understory, which is high and low bush blueberry, some sedge as well. It's a pretty thorough plan to bring them back into compliance. And this, I know, Robin, usually curious how we get this.
Yeah.
How we get these. This is from a violation. And then I have a resolution on here with the typical conditions. 4 sets of the as-built survey, and then no COs or CCs until after inspection takes place.
Do we take a bond on this?
No, bond on.
Not on individual lots.
Yes, not on private property, for a single family home. Sorry.
So do I have a motion? Motion by Gloria and second by Robin. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 7 in favor. 21, Jackie Fenlon, that's you, Vintage Vine, another site disturbance.
Yes, this is lot 19, which is 85 Birchwood Lane. This is kind of towards the south on the new subdivision road. Let me show you the resolution and the area. Oh, sorry. There you go. I did just want to inform the board that I did ask for some slight changes from the April 21st plan, and they will be referenced in the revised resolution. They're in minute track now, but the property has eliminated some areas that were not appropriate for showing as revegetation. They're narrow strips, next to driveways and such. And I asked the applicant to pull the evergreen screening in the area outside of the revegetation. So the new survey will actually show conformance, and they have done the revegetation, and it will be 54.3% cleared, where 60% is permitted. So they are under the 60%, but previous to the revegetation, they were 77.3% disturbed.
You have a map to show us? I think you had one there.
Sure. So this, you can see the rear yard was actually fairly intact. So they re-vegged in the front yard and a little bit more in the rear yard. And then this is the map.
We don't
so
see
if you see those evergreen row in the back, I asked those to be pulled up closer to the pool.
We only see the resolution.
Nothing. They only see the resolution.
Oh, I am on the survey.
We're not.
It says, oh wait, hold on.
Not us.
Let's see, it says bring it to the front. Hold on one second. Can you see it now?
No. Maybe Claire can get it up.
Yeah, for some reason it says sharing pause, bring your shared window to the front. But I don't know exactly how to do that.
If someone text bell keep going off? Someone have a phone with a text keep going off?
I'll check mine. It's possible.
Jackie, do you want me to try it, Jackie?
Yeah, I don't know why it's paused for some reason. I'm sorry, Claire.
Do you want to unshare then? I'll go in.
Oh, let me see if I can resume share. Hold on one second. Nope. Sorry, it's not letting me change the screen for some reason.
Okay, let me try it. I think I'm close to it on my thing.
Claire, Vintage Vines starts at 126.
26. Okay, so I can
So
actually.
it should be just above this. Yeah, just above this actually.
Okay, so. Oof. I don't know, it's probably a better way to do it. Oh yeah, 126, right?
Yes, that starts it with the resolution, and then if you scroll down, I think a couple pages.
Ariel, is that what you need?
That's it.
I think they wanted the survey.
Okay.
No, let's just see the picture so we can see the clearing.
Oh, sure. Sorry. I was scrolling through that before. I didn't know you didn't see it.
I changed to view.
Yeah. So as I was saying before, you can see the vegetation in the back was actually fairly undisturbed in the rear. Until they put the pool in, it caused a little bit more disturbance. So they also do have a screening of evergreens along the back. So I asked them to pull that out of the native area and the revegetation area to the front. So it's actually closer to the pool now. And then they do have revegetation in the front. This application now is in conformance. So I do have an updated survey that shows it's actually 54.3% clearing, which it was previously 77 point something percent clearing. So it's now even in more conformance than the survey that was uploaded last week. And I am recommending approval, and the vegetation has been done. So they are ready for a certificate of occupancy and actually are waiting to close on the property.
Is that the last one from Vintage Vine, Jackie? Or?
I believe there's 2 or 3 pending, but those would be the last 2 or 3.
They're all over cleared also?
The 2 or 3, yes. I am reviewing them currently. I don't, one, I'm waiting for an updated survey. But 2 are in, review standards. So I've been reviewing them and going back and forth with the applicant. And I think they just said they had 1 more to submit, which I'm not aware of the address at this point.
Was there actually any one of those houses that wasn't over cleared?
Not one.
0.
Not that I'm aware of. But I have to admit, even though, these are very large houses on these lots, so they either get 50% or 60% clearing. So when you're coming in with machinery, a large scale machinery like dump trucks, and you're putting sanitary systems in, and they have to be in the front, I have to admit it is a very tough site because the lots are smaller. This was a cluster plan, so we do have the benefit of a lot of open space strips. This actually preserved the railroad spur right of way. From Bridgehampton to the Long Pond Greenbelt. But because of all the activity in the front yard, most of the revegetation is in the front yard. They are doing a good job, though, to try to keep the mature trees, but the understory just ends up getting devastated during the construction process. So they do a good job, and they do have mature trees. They were just showing me pictures of the trees. They are about 3-inch caliper, kind of like what Matt was saying is recommended. Our recommended caliper is 2 to 3. So these ones were looking in very good health. And they do a good job with the density of the low bush blueberry, which also serves as the understory.
And there's a bond on this, maintenance bond?
No, we don't normally require bonds on private property.
Even though this is a subdivision?
Yes, well, they're each owned individually. So, but this would bring it into conformance and would allow the property to obtain its C of O for the house.
Any other questions on this? Motion to approve by Phil, second by Glorian. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor.
Aye.
Huh?
So I do have the next item.
22 around Farm Preserve fence?
Yes. Let me see if I can share again. Hold on one moment. Are you guys seeing this?
No.
No. I'm seeing
No?
it.
Do you want me to do it, Jackie?
Yeah. I'm not sure why it's, on mine.
I think we're doing really well for the first time, so.
I agree. A practice session, thank God.
Yeah.
We had another practice session, by the way. We had another one.
Your own, your internal one, right?
Yeah, we did.
Well, it's very smooth.
Thank you.
Okay, so Claire has brought up the aerial. Thank you, Claire. So you'll see there are 3 undeveloped residential lots, which those are now preserved. And this Peconic Land Trust is making the application. This is the agricultural reserve property that was created by the subdivision. And it is actually just south of the PSEG building. So you guys will know that as
Across the
Montauk
street.
Highway, as you're approaching Bridgehampton, it's on the south side or on the right side. And there's a small farm stand, active seasonal farm stand. So the fence is going to be around the perimeter of all the lots that you see highlighted in blue. And the gate that they are proposing is a 16-foot wide gate, which will just be like kind of to the south of the seasonal farm stand area, so they can bring the vegetables up to the farm stand. Currently, it is being farmed by the Wesnofsky family. It's going to be potatoes this year, and then next year they're actually going to alternate, and it will be Hank Krasuski III, Krasuski, sorry, and that will be vegetables and corn next year. They also are giving the opportunity for new farmers. They're actually slating a 3-acre portion for startup farmers, and they are currently leasing one of the areas to actually a bee. I'm not sure the right word for a bee. Beekeeper.
Apiary.
That's nice. Very nice. So
Yes.
this is fencing with all of the requirements, right?
Yes, it is 8 feet. Jackie, you did have a question during one of our staff meetings that it is going to be the black. So it is going to be the black coated galvanized steel wire mesh that's going to be 8 feet with wood poles. So I am recommending that it be approved. The only thing I did want to mention to the planning board is this is also benefiting under a 2016 enhanced grant of easement, which has very specific wording that I went over with Kathleen about the visibility. So they really are restricting the screening. So I wasn't sure if you guys wanted to add any wording to our standard condition, but I'll just read number 1. There shall be no vegetative screening of exterior or interior of the agricultural fence, so that the view shed may be preserved and to ensure compliance with the filed grant of easement referenced herein. So I do note that Liburn page in our approval. I wasn't sure if you wanted anything further on that. It is a very visible farm piece from Montauk Highway.
That's why I had asked you about the black fencing, if it was, and you said it was more invisible.
Actually, yes, the black coating actually, for whatever reason, it doesn't have that shine. So it actually almost fades away into the background more so than the galvanized. So some farmers do like the galvanized to be coated with the black. And it also, I think it also holds up a little bit longer.
Okay, that's a good sentence to add.
Now there was an applicant, Jacqueline Wilson, who was possibly going to be joining. I don't know if she has anything to add or if she's here, but she was possibly going to join the meeting.
She an applicant?
She was a representative from Peconic Land Trust, yes, but I don't see her here.
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the fencing?
Motion.
Motion by Gloria and second by Phil. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? 7 in favor. Everyone's here, right?
Yep.
Great, thank you.
Claire, you have a ZBA referral, 20 Riverly LLC.
Yep. We had done the pre-submission report actually on March 12th. And in hindsight, I probably should have just done it as a ZBA referral at the same time. So this is the approval to allow the use of the 3rd floor, which is currently not permitted in the zone, which is OD, and the parking variance for the additional parking spaces on the site. So this is all in conformance with the ROD for Riverside. However, because they don't have the sewer yet, they cannot avail themselves of that part of the code. So they get a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals. They do meet the requirements for the health departments for the flow on the site. So they're going to the health department for that. So use of the 3rd floor for all medical for the entire property. I think in the our pre-submission, we allowed them or will suggest that they do some flexibility to put apartments in there if they choose to in the future.
That was the original intent for the 3rd floor, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But because they haven't put the sewage treatment plan in, they can't do that. Yeah.
Correct. So this is very similar language to the first time we reviewed this when the original plan came in because of the reduced setbacks of the front yard. But this is, so it meets the intention and is part of the generic environmental impact statement. There's going to be very little site plan review because the building's built and it's well-maintained piece of property, but I just left some of that as a general.
I mean, do you want to say that, the reason for the request is that the sewage treatment plant is not in place? I mean, that's a strong rationale for why they need a ZBA.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I could definitely say that.
I think so.
Yeah, I'll say that under number 1 if that's good for you. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other comments on this? Okay, motion to approve by Brian, second by... Second by Dennis, I gave you the motion. Second by Robin, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions, 7 in favor. Okay, 94 Dune Holdings Corp. Dockers, that is Anthony.
Jackie,
That's me.
Jackie, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I do see that Jacqueline from Peconic Land Trust did join right after we finalized the item. I don't know if she wants to speak.
Jacqueline, are you there?
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. So we've already approved your application. Unless you've wanted to add something to it, but
Hi, how are you? I'm sorry I was running late. I couldn't get into the room.
Okay, so we've already approved the fencing. So
oh, thank you very much.
At all, okay?
If you have any questions or for us or
we're good.
Good, how are you?
Good. I see you're outside, which is nice.
Yes, I told the planning board what the proposal was and what's being farmed and about the beekeeping and the crops for this year and the alternating for next year. So.
Okay. So we've already approved it.
I will email you the finalized resolution.
Can you see or hear us?
Yes.
Okay. So we're done.
So you're all set.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so
thank you.
Dockers.
Yep.
And you've got Anthony, it's all yours.
Okay. All right. So let me see what we have to put up on the screen. Claire's right. 94 Dune Road Holding. There's the aerial. We'll take a look at that. So this is the property, the Dockers Restaurant and Marina on Dune Road in East Quogue. Everyone's probably familiar with the property. As you know, there is a restaurant and a marina there, pre-existing non-conforming use. The property's in the R80 zoning district. It's approximately 8.6 acres. Roughly half the property contains wetlands. The other half is upland area. They're currently before the Zoning Board of Appeals for a change from one non-conforming use to another. They want to go from a restaurant and marina to a 25-unit condominium development. Like I said, it's R80 zoning, and we're asked to provide comments to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And I provided a memo which outlines some issues that I'll go through. Claire, do you have the report that could go up on there?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks. So we addressed this to the zoning board, and so the first part of it just says what the application is for. The planning board has reviewed the application and offers the following comments and recommendations at this time. One, the planning board finds that one of the goals and objectives of the town zoning code is to bring non-conforming properties into compliance with the underlying zoning district. In this case, the R80 zoning would result in significantly fewer residences than what is being proposed. With an upland area of roughly 4.5 acres, the property would yield probably 2 lots. And they're asking for 25. 2, as a reminder, the planning board previously advised the ZBA that the project is classified as a type 1 action pursuant to SECRA and Chapter 157 of the town code, and therefore requires lead agency coordination among all involved agencies. Pursuant to Chapter 157 of the town code, parking facilities or other facilities with an associated parking area where the total number of parking spaces, including both existing and proposed parking, is 50 spaces or greater, are classified as type 1 actions. And per the applicant, the project requires a total of 56 parking spaces. 3, the proposed project requires site plan and wetlands permit approval by the planning board. This project is subject to a pre-submission conference pursuant to 330-184 of the town code. This is an initial step in the application process that provides a preliminary review of site plan application that will identify planning and environmental issues early in the review process. We haven't received an application for a pre-submission conference yet, and typically the pre-submission conference report serves as referral comments to the ZBA. Number 4, the planning board is concerned with the redevelopment of the subject property given the environmental conditions and constraints as outlined by the Conservation Board in their memorandum to the ZBA dated February 26, 2020. I forwarded the board a copy of their comments. In addition to its location within town wetlands jurisdiction, the property is located within FEMA flood zones and limit of moderate wave action, as well as the town's high priority quality improvement zone. As stated by the Conservation Board, nearly half the area of the property contains wetlands and is surrounded by same. All of the environmental concerns and issues will need to be properly analyzed during the secret review process. Number 5, the planning board finds the proposed number of dwelling units to be excessive for the site, given the environmental conditions and constraints. It is not clear how 25 units was determined to be appropriate for the site, but given the need for a sewage treatment plant in order to accommodate the density for the health department, we're raising the question about the number of units. With approximately 4 acres of upland area, the property would likely yield 2 lots, which is far less than the 25 units proposed by the applicant. Number 6, the planning board finds the project is not consistent with the Southampton Town Coastal Resources and Water Protection Plan as it pertains to coastal waters and water-dependent uses and activities, where such water-dependent enhanced uses are generally preferred to other uses. The plan seeks to manage development and redevelopment consistent with the vision of the comprehensive plan by adhering to, quote, the town zoning law standards for uses, densities, and siting of development. Further, the plan seeks to, quote, minimize or avoid potential adverse land use, environmental, and economic impacts that would result from the proposed development. Until such time as SECRA has been conducted and the project is properly evaluated, it is unclear if this project complies with the policy. Next page. The planning board finds the project is not consistent with the long-range planning goals and objectives of addressing affordable housing. The applicant has not indicated how the project will conform to the town's affordable housing requirements as mandated by New York State. Just to add to the planning board, as a reminder, any residential development where 5 or more units are being proposed is subject to the affordable housing requirement as mandated by the Long Island Workforce Housing Act that was set up by New York State. So I just wanted to add that for the board as a reminder. While the planning board's general policy is to require the affordable units be built on site, the following options are available, and this, of course, is dependent on the recommendations from the town's planning and development administrator. Janice hasn't chimed in yet. The application doesn't indicate any affordable housing, but the planning board has options to build them on site, to provide other land, or to take a fee. Typically, the planning board prefers that they get built on site. 8, although the applicant has not submitted a request for a pre-submission conference, the planning board has some preliminary site plan comments that include but are not limited to the following. Density, 25 units far exceed what would be allowed under the zoning code and is too much density for a property with environmental constraints as noted herein. B, have any practical alternatives, including water-dependent uses, been considered for the site? C, wetlands and zoning setbacks. The planning board finds that wetlands and zoning setbacks should be brought into compliance to the maximum extent possible. D, the sewage treatment control building does not appear to comply with FEMA building requirements, nor is it clear if the leaching structures will comply with the 2-foot separation from groundwater. E, compliance with FEMA standards. While the site plan indicates the FEMA first floor flood elevations will be +2, the drawing needs to note that the condominium units will be elevated on pilings as required by FEMA. The other thing I'd like to add is related to that, as because they have to be elevated per FEMA, some type of, this is a wide open piece of property right on Dune Road, some type of visual analysis wasn't provided to sort of indicate what these would look like sitting on the road like that. So I just wanted to add that comment. Landscaping, the landscaping plan needs to increase the density plantings as recommended by the Conservation Board. And G, regarding drainage, and this was also picked up by the Conservation Board, the stormwater overflow drainage swale will require excavation and regrading approximately 5 feet from the wetlands. While drainage swales are often encouraged to augment subsurface drainage structures, there is concern that this will direct contaminated stormwater into the wetlands and surface waters, being that it's so close. The applicant is advised to consider alternatives and to discuss drainage issues with the town engineer. Regarding architecture, building elevations haven't been provided. And number 9, it says, at this time, the planning board is concerned with the proposed application for the reasons stated herein, and the planning board recommends the ZBA hold off on making a decision until secret review process has been completed. So I'm here to answer questions for the board. I think John Bennett is also here to discuss with the board.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Do we have any questions from board before we take John?
Yeah, I have a question. If the 25 units are too much, has the applicant expressed any alternative? I mean, if you can't do 25, is there some minimum number that's acceptable to make it economically beneficial for them to continue to do this, or does it have to be 25 or we're not going to do this?
You know, as relates to Phil, that question, you know, we'll direct it to John. I don't know off the top of my head what a number would be. You know, the reality is we got to go through the environmental review process to assess the property. You know, I will leave to John to explain how they came up to 25 units and what.
Phil, your question is a little premature. We don't want to be in a position where we're pulling numbers and throwing numbers around. I mean, that's what SECR is for, is to examine in a formal manner the various alternatives for the project.
Right,
Dennis, your audio is...
Yeah, I had to pull I was getting too much static. But you know, you don't want to be in a position yet of pulling numbers haphazardly. The purpose of SECR is to look at alternatives in a formal manner, along with allowing public input. So, but John will probably speak to that.
Right. Well, Anthony's report states clearly that 4 acres of upland in an R80 residential zone yields two lots.
Right.
And how was the 25 unit project arrived at? So that's a very valid question. So if there are no more questions from the board, John, I'm sure you would like to speak. John,
if I may.
The applicant.
If I may, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. One of the things I'm going to suggest, and hopefully you'll agree to after I give you the information that I'm about to give you, and I don't want you to be concerned about any Zoning Board of Appeals deadline, because this is on for the Zoning Board of Appeals on the 21st. This is certainly not the type of matter that would be over and done in one meeting. I'm going to ask you to consider a lot of the things that I'm saying in your report, and I will represent to you that I don't have any fear of the Zoning Board of Appeals doing anything other than keeping this open, because they haven't looked at it at all yet. But I will represent to you that I will make the specific request, and indeed insist that they keep it open until the planning board's referral document has come to them, because I want the planning board to have the benefit of a lot of things that are not touched upon in this report. And one of the things that is resounding about this report is that it's all done in a sort of planning zoning vacuum, but doesn't take into account any of what's going on now and some of the realities that have happened in terms of the various attempts to do other things on this property. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that, and then I'm going to talk to you about something very important. I think that the planning board is severely miscued on the classification of the action. I'm going to talk to you about that. But let me talk to you a little bit about some of the things that I've seen here, which I think would actually make for a much better report. And it's not to criticize Anthony, it's just the applicant always tends to have a lot more information. And I have a lot more information since I've actually represented the owners of this property for almost 30 years in various litigations and zoning applications. So I want to talk to you about this, and I will try very much to move things along, okay? You know, the existing development of the property is essentially, you've probably all been there, a very intense use, which is at a 0 wetland setback and has just a regular, gravity-fed wastewater system at the property. So the existing development is substantially non-compliant with the town's wetlands regulations, as well as the flood construction standards. The proposed redevelopment of the property, I have a quibble with Marty trying to grab jurisdiction as a based upon a boat ramp that had a concrete bottom, but I'll deal with that in the Conservation Board. But the existing proposed development will comply in terms of setbacks, not only with all the FEMA regulations, but more important, or as important, I should say, with the wetlands setbacks. So, you know, you can't, the problem that I have with the report is it's in a vacuum. Yes, this is a 2-acre zone property, but it's also improved with a significant, marina, restaurant, tennis courts, 100 and, let me get this straight because this is a really important part of the secret discussion as well, 145 parking spaces where we're going to 56. So we're going to talk more about that because classifying this as a type 1 action is just illogical. But in any event, the report doesn't bring to mind the fact of what the existing development is. And then a really critical thing, which the report doesn't talk about, I'm not sure what the finding is for the fact that the development is excessive. That's just somebody picked that out of the air and said it's excessive. The current septic system is a standard passive system, which doesn't actively remove any nitrogen from the over 1,000 gallons of daily effluent generated by the existing use, which typically exceeds about 65 milligrams of nitrogen per liter. The proposed sewage treatment facility will treat the septic flow so that the effluent doesn't exceed 10 milligrams of nitrogen per liter. So, there's no attempt to compare, which I think any proper document should. There's no attempt whatsoever to prepare the proposed action in terms of impacts with the existing non-conforming use. And you're talking about this, you should be talking about this in a referral, because the referral should be fair and should be talk not only about the fact that the property doesn't conform, we all know that, but the effect of those nonconformities. Some talk about, the town coastal resources and water protection plan that was adopted, I believe, in 2016. But the town really hasn't taken any action to further allow a developed RWB use on this property. I sort of, knowing what I know about the history of this property, that's just a non-starter. There was a determination of the building, and there are about 13, 14, 15 slips there at the property, despite the fact that there's a planning board, a building department determination, which was upheld by the Zoning Board of Appeals and litigated up to the second department, that said there could be 48 slips at the property. The DEC and the trustees said, we're giving you 17 slips and be happy. So there's no potential for expansion. It's a pre-existing non-conforming use, and it's a commercial pre-existing non-conforming use. So unlike residential uses, you can only take 50% of the existing size of the facility at the time the facility became non-conforming, and I've handled 2 separate zoning board of appeals applications, we've already taken up about 30% of that, 30% of the 50%. So there's, to suggest that there's any alternative RWB uses for this property, which by the way, we've offered to the town, and the town's off the record offer to purchase the property is less than 50% of what candidly the owners are in a conditional contract for now. So we've tried to get this thing sold to the town. The town was effectively not interested. So that's very important, that there's been no comparative analysis here whatsoever. You know, there's a comment made about, you know, it's in the limit of moderate wave action. It's interesting that that deals at all in the report. It's a FEMA, it's a area, it's a flood zone. We're gonna meet the FEMA requirements. There's no question. We have no argument but to do anything about that. But if you look at the definition of the moderate wave action, the local statute, it says something very interesting. This additional layer of information is advisory and not regulatory. So I don't even know what this is doing in the report as it reflects a report to the Zoning Board of Appeals. There's no request for relief from the elevation requirements to everyone's, which by the way should be contrasted to the existing development, which doesn't comply at all because it doesn't have to, because it's pre-existing non-conforming. Why isn't that in this report? I would urge you to put that in the report. It makes for a better and more helpful report for everybody involved. I want to say that the Zoning Board of Appeals, there is nothing in the town code, by the way, only when you have a historic, a threatened historic or cultural landmark are you required to file for a pre-application submission before you go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'll tell you quite candidly, it's always been my policy when there is a lot of zoning relief needed, as there is here, to file with the Zoning Board of Appeals. First, we know this is gonna have to go to you. So, and it's not like it's gonna slip by you. So I think that's an unnecessary comment. But again, I'm asking you to look at this report and say, you know what, if we want to make this helpful for everybody, we should really compare what's there now. The current site is occupied by a pre-existing restaurant located 0 feet from the tidal wetlands boundary. We're going to take that pre-existing structure away. We're restoring degraded tidal wetlands, establishing extensive vegetative buffers to adjoining wetlands, and maintaining the setbacks from wetlands consistent with the environmental conservation law. And the adjoining wetlands and littoral zone will also benefit from increased water quality due to reduction in upland pollutants. So actually that's, if anything, this project is going to eliminate and certainly significantly mitigate any upland pollution. Again, it's a glaring problem with the report because it's not helpful. It's a report that it's in a vacuum. It doesn't look at what's on the ground. And that analysis should be helpful to everybody. Let me talk to you a little bit about the type 1 action here. You do not find the category of 50 parking spaces in the state type 1 action list. I've done a lot of secret litigation, a lot of environmental work, as you all know, and I'm well aware of the fact that a municipality can create its own type 1 list. But you know, this type 1 list for parking is very, very, very flat. It's very narrow. It doesn't say 50 spaces of parking associated with some other type of use. So it's a very, very narrow, code section. And as with all land use laws, it has to be specifically and very narrowly defined. I put this, hopefully you've all seen my May 13th letter in which I go into great lengths on this, but it's illogical and contrary to the rule of reason that is required by all the pronouncements of the courts in SECRA, to take a situation where you have 145 existing parking spaces and suggest that a project where you're going to end up with 56 is triggered because you have a town-created, very narrow section that says if you have 50 more parking spaces. Well, that doesn't make any sense because we're reducing the number of parking spaces by almost 100. I might add parenthetically that the number of traffic trips will be halved by this. So these are the sort of things that I would ask you to allow us to give you further information on, adjourn this, make it a much more usable and fair and balanced report to the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm not suggesting that you do anything other than make sure your facts are right and you have a true and intelligent comparison of the existing and you know, I can see you're smiling when I say intelligent. It's not to suggest that no one's intelligent. What I'm saying is it's a rhetorical intelligent. Please, I always get caught up with that, and somebody looks at me and says, "Are you saying I'm not intelligent?" Well, that's the last thing in the world I'm saying. It's a rhetorical intelligent, meaning a more thorough and a more balanced and a more factually appropriate report. So I would ask you to do that. I will represent to you, which I think is a needless representation because ain't nothing going to happen that first night at the Zoning Board of Appeals on a project of this nature, but I would represent to you that I will say you shouldn't even begin to think about taking any action until you have the staff report, the Zoning Board of Appeals referral report. Let me help you make this a better report. You know, you may stick with your guns on all the stuff, but I think I can provide a lot more information for you to make this a better and more helpful report, not only for the Zoning Board of Appeals, but for you down the road. A lot of good stuff here can happen by taking this existing use of way, tennis courts, a marina, active marina. The slips are going to be there only for the owners of the units. So it's not going to be anybody can come in here. So you're doing away with the marina, which, by the way, regardless of what the town says about you know, promoting marinas, this is not going to be. Every time I tried to get one more slip in there, both the DEC and the trustees clamored about it. They were concerned about shellfish closures. There is significant shellfishing just outside of the Doug Lagoon. And the people across the street at Round Dune, again, brought a lawsuit which took probably 7 or 8 or 9 years to conclude. So there's not going to be any expansion. There's no meaningful opportunity for expansion of any sort of water-dependent uses here. So that's, again, I would ask you to, no matter how this you finally come out, I'd ask you to let me help you make this a more balanced and fair and factually filled report.
John, if I could just jump in, I don't think you and the board are as far apart as you think, as far as wanting to do that analysis and allow you to make your argument on behalf of your client. But I think we differ on the avenue and the mechanism to do that. All of what you describe, you know, represents the substance of the impact statement, which you, in fact, you will draft and prepare. I couldn't think of a better avenue for you to make these arguments than through a properly scoped impact statement. Plus, it gives, as you will know, it provides a certain legal shield if we do this haphazard, and this is certainly going to garner controversy. You know very well what happens when we take the shortcut. We get in front of a judge, and the argument is, well, we don't want to make a decision, Your Honor. We're just asking you to ask them to draft, to follow secret procedure and do the analysis through the secret process. So go ahead, John.
If I may, I'm not suggesting for 1 second you should make a determination I'm not arguing a determination of significance at all. I think at a minimum, you would want an expanded EAF on this, which Chuck Bowman is working on. We were going to submit that. It, not surprisingly, is concentrated on the significant reduction in effluent and the fact that there would be a sewage treatment plant on site. What I take great difference with is the classification of the action. Now remember, if it's classified as an unlisted action, I may have my differences with you if you do this, but you can still issue a positive declaration on an unlisted action. I'm not arguing at all today. That would be very premature for me to argue about any sort of ultimate determination as to a determination of significance today. I'm not that bold, but I do have a significant difference about your classification of the action. And it's not just a mere classification of the action. That has very significant impacts, the mere classification of the action as a type 1 action. I mean, it's interesting, this 50 parking space, which again, I think is being misinterpreted here, is a very, very narrow section, which talks about how many parking spaces are going to come after this whole project is done. And if you just are putting off and putting in the corner, like the elephant in the room, the fact that we're going to do away with 90 parking spaces. I mean, look at that. If you scroll through the type 1 actions, by comparison, in the state designations, in a city, town, or village having a population of 150,000 persons or less, 200 units connected to public water and sewerage systems, which is what this will be. This is about 1/10 of that. So, and by the way, a type 1 action is an action which is more likely to have an impact. Doesn't mean that you have to have an impact statement. I would ask you just to give me a little bit more time to try to convince you that this is not a type 1 action. It's illogical to me to take something where you're doing 100 parking space reduction. And again, I'm not arguing at all at this point. I'm not trying to convince you one way or the other at this point whether or not you should make a determination of significance under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. I'm not trying to do that. I wouldn't be that bold at this point. But again, the classification is wrong. It doesn't hamstring you in terms of, I'm going to try to convince you that you don't need a positive deck if I have a draft environmental, expanded EAF that pretty much looks like a DEIS, but ultimately you're going to make that determination one way or the other. I may be happy with it. I may not be, who knows? You're not removing your ability by classifying this as an unlisted action to issue a positive declaration, as you know that, Dennis. So, but anyway, I'd ask you to I'd like a little more time to convince you that your classification as a type 1 action is wrong.
Well, it may be productive to allow staff that a period of time to respond to your arguments. Specifically, Claire is well, very knowledgeable in SECRA, and we look to her oftentimes for guidance and interpretation and so forth. I don't know, Jackie.
Well, I mean, as far as John is concerned, your comment about that we have to look at what's existing there versus just commenting on the application itself, I don't agree. We're not examining what's there. We're examining the application as it was submitted to us. I think Anthony's report is substantive and on target. I turn it over to the rest of the board if somebody has some other comments to make. Anybody?
Let me just add real quick regarding the secret classification. This was really just me reading the code, which says, in addition, the following are deemed type 1 actions: parking facilities or other facilities with associated parking area with a total number of parking spaces, including both existing and proposed parking, is 50 spaces or greater. I'm not trying to squeeze, a definition here. I'm just reading it, in plain English. And it just says 50 or more spaces existing and proposed. It just seemed like it met the requirement for a type 1 action. I agree with John Bennett. I'm glad he said it. We're going to do the environmental review, whether it's type 1 or unlisted, and then the planning board can make its findings regardless of how we classify it. It seems to me that it met the definition under that section of the code. So
I believe under that section of the code, it does meet the definition. It says existing and proposed. We deal with this section all the time. And as you know, the state has given the town, thank you, John. And this, as you know, the state has given the town the authority to implement its own type 1 classifications as it deems necessary. So for the record, also for the record, just in terms of a comment that was made earlier, the town board, in terms of purchasing properties, is bound by fair market value from an appraisal.
Okay, but that's important that you know that, because one of the things that people are arguing about is alternative uses, okay? And it's very important. You talked about alternative uses. I also, Jackie, I don't know how you can make a report about anything, a chicken coop, without talking about what's existing on the property. I mean, that doesn't sort of make much sense to me. But in any event, what I'd like is a little bit more time to try to convince you that your determination that this is a type 1 action is incorrect, particularly in light of the fact, as Anthony has echoed, that it's not going to bind you at all in terms of whether or not ultimately you are of the opinion that there should be a positive declaration under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. There are other negative effects that this can have unfairly to me if there's a neighborhood problem or something like that. And I think oftentimes, judges who are not as well versed in SEQR will look at a type 1 action and say, well, hell, look at this right here. It's a type 1 action.
No, but I disagree, because it doesn't
Have
say.
you litigated SEQR cases, Claire? Please.
Can I speak to this? Because Dennis referred to me, and like Kathleen said, it's very clear. And no, it doesn't. It doesn't say. It said could likely. It doesn't say does.
When people say very clear, I get nervous. It usually means there's not enough backing behind it. Well, that's clear. It's very clear.
Well, the code clearly says 50 or more spaces is type 1.
No, what you have to put this, you have to put this stuff through the reams and reams and reams of cases about interpretation.
Your letter did not provide any authority, John. So maybe you could give us some authority on where
and that's what I was asking. Yep.
Sure. Both existing and proposed is what the code currently states. And you're proposing 54 or 56, I believe. 56.
I'm proposing almost 100 spaces less.
Less. We understand that. It's clear.
Well,
we get that.
It's illogical.
So how much more time would you like, John?
Oh, give me a month, because after all, this ain't going anywhere quick. So, I don't expect it to.
So we can tell the ZBA that we're not going to have a report to them at least in a month, because you said you'd ask for more time, right?
No, I've said 3 times now. I said I will represent the Zoning Board of Appeals. That it's only fair. I've asked the Planning Board for more time, and then you should even begin to make a decision on this matter before you have the benefit of the Planning Board's report. Not that it's nothing like this is not going to be a 1 hearing application.
So by the second meeting in June. If we have a second
meeting in June, yes, that would be great. That would be great. If you don't,
Jackie, is that reasonable?
Well, does anyone have anything else to say here? There was a great amount of effort and work put in the report. I think it has some value. John is asking for more time and questioning the classification, the secret classification. Does anyone have anything else to say?
I have some questions. I have a question. In terms of the change of the classification, what is the effect for us? Okay, and what is the effect for John? So that I can understand why he's fighting. So I understand, John, from you, I'm trying to find out from my planners and from our account, what is the effect, the bottom line effect, practical effect of changing the classification?
That's a very good question.
So the ZBA can choose to not coordinate. They actually probably will coordinate because they usually do with applications.
So if it's not a type 1 action, there's a possibility that there would not be the coordination.
Correct.
That's an important difference.
If you would like me, I will offer that to ask the Zoning Board of Appeals to coordinate with you, and I will even suggest, because you're probably going to want lead agency, I would think. It has been about 10 years since the ZBA did its own seeker. If you want me to stipulate that the ZBA should coordinate with you.
I'm just, John, my problem is I'm seeing a very thorough report by Anthony. I'm hearing a clear directive from my council, a clear directive from our planners. I'm trying to understand, because you're fighting very hard for something, why you're fighting that hard.
Well, I'd like to reverse it and repeat again what Anthony said and what I said to Dennis, which is whether on an action is listed, unlisted, excuse me, or a type 1 action does not prohibit you, doesn't make a hill of beans of difference in whether or not you've made it, that you guys decide that you want to go through the full-blown DEIS, the findings, and all that stuff. You can pause deck an unlisted action. I don't like the specter of a type 1 action when it's wrong and it's unnecessary.
Specter.
But I'm sorry, Robin.
I'm sorry, Jackie.
Whatever our code is here. It's not like we're pulling it out of the air.
Yes, well, but the codes are subject to interpretation and reams of case law under the State Environmental Quality Review Act and methods of interpreting land use legislation. So
I think we're aware of that, but 50 is 50.
Not when the net is 100 less.
But we're not looking at that.
Well, you should
be.
The
application is for. The application is for a 25-unit condominium. That's what we're looking at.
With 100 parking spaces less.
Jackie, what is the downside of allowing the applicant to submit additional materials?
I don't think we're going to know more than what we know. I think the report's pretty thorough.
Well, I agree. I think the report is thorough, but why are we closing? What's the timeline here for us?
Well, given all these changes and timelines, I really don't know myself. Claire, maybe you can.
Well, I think that he's willing to do he's not saying it on the record, and I think we can do it. We can put it off. Give him a benefit of the doubt. If it was me, I would give him additional time. But
okay,
my personal
we're not represented as saying that it's an unlisted, that we're considering an unlisted designation.
I think you're clear what your current position is. I'm going to try to change your mind, but I think it's clear what your current position is.
Is the downside from Robin's question that if we don't send the report to the ZBA, they could unilaterally decide to give the variance and we have no input on anything except site plan?
Not going to happen. I said to you from the very beginning that I would represent to the Zoning Board of Appeals that I had asked the Planning Board for more time, and I will specifically say to them, I do not want a decision from you because that would be unethical of me to go in there and ask them for a decision when I had asked the Planning Board to hold off on their report. That should give you all the comfort you need, despite the fact that from a practical point of view, there's no way in hell the ZBA is going to open and close this application in one night.
The ZBA, Gloria, the ZBA isn't bound by the statutory deadlines that we are. And if we were going to go that route, maybe we could just draft, capture our conversations today that we're asking for more time to allow the applicant to submit additional information regarding classification or just additional information, period.
Yeah.
But even put in the report that the applicant joins in the request for, for the board not to close any hearing or something like that. Whatever you want to do.
A simple resolution, just saying that, to the ZBA, informing.
Right.
I'm not trying to, it'll be a cold day in hell before I try to trip up the board or the staff on any sort of, technical time limitations. I've never done that.
Wow.
Anyone who's ever asked me for any time in the 30 years I've been for you guys, the answer has always been yes.
Anthony, when would you need this additional information to revise a report?
Well, I've done the report. I need, at least a week, to review new information that comes in. I know we have a meeting on June 11th, and I don't know if we're doing 2 weeks later. I assume we are. In terms of timeframes and timelines and statutory timelines, I agree with Claire. I'm not concerned about that. The zoning board will know, that they have to get our referral comments and that, we were asked to hold off. I'm not worried about that. And, the planning board, could amend the report however they want or choose not to. I need a week, turnaround time. I got to get the information to you guys to read.
Right.
So,
John, does that give you enough time?
Is that 3 weeks? What is that? 3 weeks?
It's less. It's less.
Well, I sort of feel I went from a month to less than that. So I'd like 3 weeks. Where does that put you, Anthony?
June 11th is our next meeting.
Wait, wasn't somebody talking about the second meeting in June?
Go to the second meeting.
Yeah.
It's delayed.
For the second meeting.
That's the 25th, I think.
25th.
And then you, Anthony, how much you want a week before that? That's not.
Yes, I would like a week
No,
before
because
that.
he needs a week and we need a week.
Right.
We can't be getting stuff and having reading at the day of the meeting. That's not fair to the rest of us.
Oh, I thought you did that most of the time.
That's one of the challenges.
That's the rumor.
Well, it's the reality sometimes.
Because you don't get it on time. I understand.
Okay, so where are we here? We're going to, Claire, you're going to draft something?
You want just a simple resolution saying to the ZBA on the applicant's requests, the report.
Holding off on the
until
report.
June 25th, John?
Yeah, until June 25th meeting, yeah.
And that's 6 weeks from today. I got my
That's
calendar out.
6 weeks. So in 4 weeks, we'll have you our response, if not earlier.
Okay.
That's
That
work.
works.
That's work.
So, can I have
I just wanted to make one more comment in terms of the dinging text message thing. It wasn't me, but I thought it was very interesting. I read in the Wall Street Journal this morning that during one of the Supreme Court
Toilet flush.
Somebody flush the toilet.
I'm still looking for the culprit.
All right, so can I have a motion to
Thank you.
to approve revised draft here?
Motion.
Well, we're doing basically an extension of the adoption of the ZBA referral until June 25th.
Motion.
Okay. Motion by Robin, second by Glorian. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions.
Thank you all. Be safe.
Thank you. But
All right,
Claire,
thanks,
are you
Dan.
going to be sending anything over to the ZBA?
I will.
Anyway,
I'll take care of it.
just a line.
Just
Yeah.
a message, or is
Yeah.
it something we have to act on to
You just did, right?
You did the
Yeah.
resolution to extend it to June 25th, and I'll send the ZBA that
Okay.
resolution and a little memo to go with it.
Okay, that's our action then. Good.
Okay, so thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
Thank
Be
you.
safe.
Be safe. Be safe.
Item 25, Claire, Lake Creek McDonald's. It's a ZBA referral regarding a freestanding sign.
Yeah. So this is the Riverside McDonald's on the Conic River. So the existing sign in the front, I think they already put it up. It's in this location. So originally it had the real arches, and the ZBA did not grant them to keep it because they never had approvals. So they put a smaller version of this sign up. but they're now asking for variances to put this sign, which is, you can see, 13 feet tall. I think it's 32 square feet. I have it in my report.
How much
here.
over is it, Claire?
Excuse me?
How much over our code is it?
Yeah, so the code is 26 square feet and 10 feet tall. That's our code. And it's proposed to be 33 square feet and 13 feet tall.
And is it a proper setback from the road?
Yes, it is. It meets the 20-foot setback. Yep.
So I think it should comply with the sign requirement.
Yeah. I mean, we can't be in a position to embrace, you know, variances, especially for signage.
But the visible sign, you know?
Without being adversarial against the application, we need to say we feel. I would say draft a letter of support of our existing sign code. You know, something like that along those lines. Instead of saying no, don't give them the variance, is too much. Say it's really, you know, emphasizing the importance of sign and design, especially in the Riverside hamlet, all the work that went in there. The Riverside study.
Sign, right.
Yeah. So
maybe
maybe that's what you drafted, Claire. I don't know.
Okay, no, so what I said is, I just stated it's in the village business. I say the material of the sign is appropriate for the area, it meets the code. I'm going to say it meets the code, but the planning board signs that the size and scope as it exceeds the code should be modified to meet
the code.
Is the sign already up?
It is.
All they have to do is cut the legs down.
No, I just don't, yeah, but I don't think we should allow a variance on something someone's already done and now is asking permission not only to do it, but to get a variance.
Well, that's beyond.
But I think this first sentence on planning concerns is that the sign has already been erected.
That's what I'm saying.
Common sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Setback complies, but the height and the square footage of it does not. And we request that it comply with the sign code. I mean, they may not know that it's already up. We have to inform them.
We should, yeah. You want me to bullet everything? I can just easy bullet. Okay. The first thing is that the sign should conform, period, right?
Well, the first thing I think is that the sign is up.
The sign
is up.
It's in violation. It's not.
Okay. The sign is up. The sign should conform.
So height and square footage.
Okay. And I'll put the rest of the information with the lighting and things like that. Okay. I'll make those changes if you want to approve it.
I'll move to adopt the report.
Motion by Dennis, second by Robin.
Yes, it was Gloria. Robin wasn't even in the picture.
Oh boy, zing.
All in favor?
Aye.
Everybody's up on the screen. Okay, 7 in favor. Now there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plan signatures, acknowledgement for signatures. Are they all?
Well, Phil should read them into the record, which ones he signed, maybe.
Well, they're not being signed, they're being stamped with my name.
Oh, okay.
Claire, to make sure before my name is on it, that they are in compliance.
All right, so just go through real quick. The first one was 17 Enterprise Zone, which is ready. It was a site plan, an enterprise zone right in Flanders for a special trade contractor building, and they're ready to go. Number 27, RJS, that was the auto zone in Hampton Bays with the bank building, and they're also ready to go.
And then Bridgehampton Childcare has been signed, and those plans have been released to them.
And then I have Domena Horse Farm, and they do comply with the conditions of approval and are ready for signature.
And
then Willow Square, that's the cottage property on Sabonic Road in Tuckahoe that we did the garage building in the back. It was just a garage building, and they're also ready for signature.
Okay, so my understanding is that until Phil's sign is made, you're using my name sign.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Right, where you ordered Phil's signature, and then we'll go from there. We will have to work on how you sign Mylars, but we're going to think about that.
Okay.
We haven't gotten there.
we've done everything. Congratulations to the staff.
Yes.
Everybody. Kathleen, you too. This was really flawless. And
Yeah,
Thank you, Jackie.
I have a minor question.
Yes.
It hasn't come up today, but if in the event we have to do an executive session, how is that going to work?
Good question. Well, it could be.
It doesn't have to be any different. If we leave this meeting, we can make a motion in this meeting, and then we will need a separate Zoom number to get into that. We've done it with the town board, so it's not an issue.
Oh, okay.
We just need to know in advance so that we can get a separate number. Town board, sometimes we do them just over telephone rather than through video conference. But it still does need to be noticed, so if we know about it.
Question, is tonight's link in a different one?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay.
Different email.
So make sure you, because Patty, you said for evening, I think, on it, right?
You guys adjourned.
Okay, so we're back at 6 o'clock. Charles, are you going to open up a little before for us to get on?
Yes, I will.
Thank you very much.
I have a question. Do we have a second meeting this month? Or
yes, May 28th.
Okay.
Yeah. But no night meeting, no hearing on the 20th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion by Dennis, second by Phil. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor. See you at 6 o'clock.
See you at 6 o'clock.